1. Sound.
Right. So, now declare the meeting open to the public. Welcome members to the 16th meeting of the Finance Committee in the 22 to 27 mandate. Members, the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online. For those in the public gallery, either make sure your mobile devices are on airplane mode or muted. You can connect to Assembly Wi-Fi. Password details are available on gallery rules. It's not permitted to photograph any of or record any of the meeting. We have no apologies, but we do have a number of members who are joining us remotely. Agenda item 2 is declaration of interest. So members, you are obliged to declare any relevant interest at each committee meeting as applicable. Are there any interest to declare? No? Okay, and obviously you can declare them during proceedings should that be necessary. Excuse me. The next agenda item is chairperson's business. Members, at page 6 of the meeting pack, the Minister of Finance has written to the committee indicating that she intends to introduce the Budget No. 2 bill to the Assembly on Monday, 1st of July. She has indicated that to enable the bill to pass through all its stages and receive royal assent before the voting account provided by the Budget Bill No. 1 is exhausted, Budget Bill 2 needs to proceed by accelerated passage. Understanding Order 42.2, this can happen if the committee is content that it has had appropriate consultation on the proposals within the bill, and this is confirmed in writing by either myself or a member of the committee acting on behalf of the committee on or before second stage of the bill, which is planned for Tuesday the 2nd of July. Officials are due to brief the committee on the main estimates and Budget No. 2 bill at the meeting on the 19th of June. The committee can take that opportunity to decide whether it is willing to agree to accelerated passage of the bill. The Minister has asked for early notice of any concerns that the committee may have. Would anyone like to come in at this stage? Vice Chair, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, if this is what's necessary, we'll give it our consideration. But again, just to emphasise the fact that other committees haven't had a full briefing on their individual budgets, and that would need to be emphasised and backed up, I think, by the Minister as a prerequisite across the board.
Steve Aiken. Steve Aiken.
Oh, sorry, Matthew, I didn't quite hear you there. No, sorry, Chair. Sorry, I'm not particularly happy about this. Yet again, we still don't. We heard from the Minister yesterday during questions. She indicated that there would be time to get information and consult. She said there would be opportunity for us to scrutinise, and yet again, we have got no information. We still don't know what's in the June monitoring round, and we haven't had any further information. The figures that have been presented, just given by the Minister in questions, don't necessarily marry up with what we've already been told by officials. So I'm not happy with it, and I think going for accelerated passage on this for the budget bill, I think is not appropriate, bearing in mind we don't have any of the information that we need. But I appreciate that'll probably be a minority view. Okay.
Anybody else like to come in? I would just remind members we aren't required to make a decision on this today. We've had early warning from the Minister. I would suggest that we, if it's possible, and if members are agreed, that we seek further information from the DALO. First of all, it's good that we're at least getting this information well in advance. There are a few things I would suggest that we find out from the DALO. Number one is, we may not be able to get one of these from the DALO. It may have to come from other committees. The status of budget, we talked about this last week, the status of budget briefings being done by other committees. Yes.
I'm aware that other committees' scheduling is by and large throughout June. I've had some feedback from a couple of committees who are getting briefings next week. So if I can bring that information back, I should be able to get an indication from all committees what exactly, and I can bring that back next week. It'll give members a clearer idea of what's going on. But my recollection was most were able to say they were getting briefings between now and the end of the month on various aspects, business plan, current update on budget. I think some have already got June monitoring scheduled in as well. So I'll bring that information back for next week.
The other thing I think it would be worth us finding out is the status around the 65% headroom. We did take a vote on account for 65%. So I think it's worth us bottoming out why it's necessary to do presumably we don't have to do it. Will there be a voting account with this budget bill, or will that not be necessary?
Because the budget number 2 bill starts in July but doesn't complete until September, we really don't have to look at any issues before September in terms of the voting account running out. It might be worth, Chair, as you say, to quantify where we think that takes us. We've variously heard end of September as far as the start of November, so it might just be worth actually bottoming out what that means.
Indeed, and then and as a card of that, it's always worth asking what do they perceive to be the consequences of not passing a budget number 2 bill before recess. And I think thirdly, I think for us we talk a lot about accelerated passage. I would like to find out the last time that a budget bill did not pass via accelerated passage, because I think we need to start slightly demystifying this process and being slightly honest with ourselves about accelerated passage and the budget bill process, because we have just had a pretty robust debate about the budget itself. The core thing is that we debate the budget and allocations and how the executive is doing, rather than simply the legal authorisation. So I would like to find out when the last time there wasn't actually a budget bill that wasn't passed by accelerated passage, and if we're honest, did it really add to the detail and efficacy of budget scrutiny? I would be I wonder whether budget bills are not obviously the same thing as bills, detailed bills which are changing law and therefore impacting on public service delivery. So I just like those bits of information, and we don't have to formally make a decision on agreement. But the deputy chair wanted to come in.
I was just saying, Jerry has sent a message saying can't
It's
get
not
the
going to
link.
link. We're going to have to see where that has gone
Okay.
to. We'll have had notification of that link.
One other thing I think would be useful, and might come up later on in our proceedings, is around June monitoring, and to establish whether the minister thinks we'll get, because at one point the indication was that she was intending to do June monitoring on the basis of their belief of what main estimates would probably have been. It would just be worth us confirming that as soon as we can, if possible.
Chair, possibly worth bringing in at this point, as members recall from last week, we've scheduled June monitoring briefing for the 3rd of July provisionally. That would be June monitoring across the piece, because as I said before, some committees are going to have that prior to the date we're having it, because ours will be overarching. But we'll seek all that information now to bring back for next week.
Okay.
I just check, Chair, then when do we need to give approval by for the minister to be able to lay that there with the...
Members might recall with budget, the previous budget bill, we actually, the committee, gave approval to the accelerated passage literally minutes before it was introduced. So up until it's introduced, effectively, and the introduction would be delayed, one would assume, until that accelerated passage is granted.
Technically, there has to be my understanding is that because the Assembly has to vote on accelerated passage, but the chairperson or someone acting on the chairperson's behalf gives the view of the committee, and that is required for the Assembly.
For
so
budget bill,
we give our
clear, budget bill is the bill that has to have committee approval for accelerated passage. It differs to any of the other bills that are seeking accelerated passage. At the minute, the situation is the minister has flagged it up. Therefore, the committee will need to let the speaker know. And then from there, it's essentially down to the committee how it wants to play that. We have briefings scheduled from the department around the budget and the budget bill. And from those, members can decide whether or not they wish to seek further briefing or move to agree or not agree accelerated passage. But effectively, because of the nature of budget bills, it has to be the committee that grants that accelerated passage. So I suppose, to an extent, it is the committee's timetable.
Okay. Given that we're due, should it happen, we would be due to debate it in the last few days of the first and second. I suspect some MLAs, possibly some of this committee, may be otherwise detained or wish to be otherwise detained. But anyway, we'll discuss that whenever we have some of that information back. Right. The next item is NI Audit Office Report, Budgeting and Accountability. So members, at page 8 of the meeting pack, the Audit Office published its Budgeting and Accountability report. that was, these were the themes that were highlighted in the committee's report, in this committee's report on engagement on the draft budget 24-25. So there was some useful, reflections and insights there, many of which are, reflect the points we have raised and this committee has raised in previous lifetimes. There will be a response, won't there? There'll be a memorandum of response which will be copied into at some point. Okay, item 4 are draft minutes of the meeting held last week on 29th of May. They are page 61 of the meeting pack. If members are content with those minutes and that they're a true reflection of the proceedings, if people are content, I will sign them. Yes, if people are content, yeah. Agenda item 5 is matters arising. Item 5.1 is an item on methodological changes for excess deaths. That's at page 69 of the meeting pack, following consideration of a request from Mr. Frew on certain issues around methodological changes. NISRA has provided detailed responses, and Dr. Wales has suggested he would be happy to brief the committee again. I'm sure we'll be talking at some point about other matters. Obviously, there are a few different registrar-related issues that are coming up in this mandate, or indeed to engage with specific members specifically. If members are content to note this response, anybody wants to make a comment?
Just very quickly, I don't wish to prolong the meeting or keep going on with this exchange, other than to say it is all getting very messy with regards to the different methodologies. I'm still not convinced or have any confidence in the new methodology. I tend to continue with what we know, which is a mathematical fact. But I am interested, and I welcome the fact that they are now, ONS is going to start publishing a breakdown of excess deaths by country and sex, as well as a UK breakdown by age. And that's something that I will look at with great interest, because I still don't know how they're going to use the new methodology in working out what is an expected death age for a 20 to 30 year old. So I await with interest, but I'll not prolong this meeting any longer, and I'll not carry on with the correspondence. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Jerry Carroll, Jerry.
We've got him on screen.
We have Jerry Carroll. We have Jerry in vision.
Yeah.
Okay, hi Jerry. So the next item is on shared island funding. Page 73 of the meeting pack, you will see that we request a detail on the governance and accountability of the shared island framework, including who is responsible for scrutiny, etc. The department has indicated that there isn't a single framework in place for shared island funding. Rather, each individual project programme is subject to agreement between the relevant southern and northern departments concerned, and the agreement will include the governance and accountability for how the funding is used and other assorted matters. So members, that's to note this information unless anybody wishes to make any further comment on it. Okay, in that case the next item is 5.3, RHI Records Management. Members, at page 75 of the meeting pack, you will remember that on the 8th of May, members discussed the implications of the evidence being given at the COVID inquiry, particularly in respect of record keeping and minute taking. The committee requested an update from the Department of Finance on its compliance with post-RHI recommendations. The department has provided that update, which is, as I say, at page 75 of the meeting pack. Do any members wish to make any comments on that? No. Okay. No. Philip, do you want to go? No. Okay. There is some further detail that I think is interesting, but I would suggest members can obviously take that away in further time, and we will have the opportunity, hopefully, before the end of the mandate, to talk to the head of the civil service about these things. And 5.4 is land registration employer liability. At the meeting on the 8th of May, members discussed land registration employer liability cases and requested further information in detail on the cases, either under restriction or in closed session. The department has provided a response in this regard, indicating that information around these cases is sensitive, in that information released on the estimated value of a contingent liability could be perceived as an amount likely to be paid out, rather than what it actually represents, which is an accounting note of a future possible statement of a claim of uncertain timing and amount, and therefore confidentiality is extremely important. So members, this is to note this information, unless anybody wants to come in, and the Deputy Chair wants to come in.
Thank you, and you know I keep going on a little bit about this point, but I do feel that the responses coming back are just giving me concern, because I asked that even if we could have a response in closed session, I would like to know as Finance Committee where the complaints are going. I understand the definition of contingent liability, that we don't want to put in the public domain the estimation of a settlement of a claim, but I think that it's the responsibility of ourselves within the Department of Finance to have a ballpark figure of the quantification of a claim, and we again ask for it unrestricted. And I also would like the committee to consider asking a little bit more about where they're suspecting fraud by a third party, what that means, and again the impact of that. But I would be keen to have it even in restricted session, because these are cases against the LPS and consolidate it within the Department of Finance.
I certainly agree that it's not really, if we indicated to them as we did that we would be happy to discuss these matters in closed session and they came back and said no, it's sensitive, that is, I think, a bit of a snub to the committee, because they're effectively saying that either they don't trust us or they're still not willing to give us the information, and I don't think that's a reasonable response. So I think we are legitimately entitled to go back and say to them that we would like this information, and we are duty bound as a committee to protect any information that we're given. Obviously, Diane has a particular professional experience. I think, given we are the Finance Committee, we should be able to grapple with basic financial management terms like contingent liability and without putting into the public domain matters of commercial confidence, and indeed confidence generally are things that committees deal with all the time, and I just don't think that's an acceptable response. So I think we should go back.
There's plenty of precedent for committees being briefed on such issues in closed sessions, so yeah, we'll go back and push.
I think pretty cheeky to suggest that we are not entitled or shouldn't be getting this information whenever we've asked for it reasonably and with specific explicit promises around protecting anything that is confidential.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul Free wants to go.
Ian, a lack of respect to this committee could lead to all sorts of questions being raised about why we should give accelerated passage to the budget bill.
I think there's a fair point around officials having to, frankly, respect and give due respect to a statutory committee of the Northern Ireland Assembly and not fob us off when we ask for perfectly reasonable information requests. And I would make that point fairly robustly to the Dáil that we do not view simply generalised concerns around protection as reasonable excuses at all. Whenever we deal with confidential information all the time, indeed in previous committees, confidential information has been dealt with routinely and protected. Steve Aiken.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I would concur with your views and your sentiments. I think it's also disquieting because previously in the correspondence we've just read through about RHI records management and the appropriateness of providing sufficient information to committees. I think, bearing in mind our committee previously was given some substantial confidential information that stayed well and truly within the committee. I think that the approach being taken by officials is not acceptable, and I think we should be writing to officials to make that not only abundantly clear, but we should also be writing to the head of the Northern Ireland Civil Service that there now seems to be yet another example of bad practice developing, and we are not able to do our jobs if we're not given information, and I think this is completely unacceptable.
Well, I think I take the point and agree with. Can I suggest, given that we have the head of the Civil Service, we hope in front of us, and we have the opportunity to raise that with her directly should the need arise, I would suggest that maybe if we give the department one more chance to sort of do the right thing and treat us with the courtesy and seriousness that we are owed, then we will, if they choose not to at that stage, I think we will have more than enough evidence to escalate it. Okay.
Sorry, Chair,
okay.
May I just
hang on 1 second, Steve. Right. Did someone else say they wanted to comment? No. Okay, Steve.
No, just a very quick one. I think, bearing in mind that there has been a bit of developing a head of steam for the head of the civil service coming before us, it might be very opportune for us to write ahead to say that these are some of the significant issues that we want to get some answers to, and actually it might encourage officials to be a bit more open and more responsible to the committee if they know that we're already going to ask the head of the civil service that.
I think that point's noted, and we're going to probably touch on that when we come on to the forward work programme and towards the end of the meeting. So yeah, I think that point's noted, and we can touch on that whenever we go through the forward work programme. Okay, the next item is the urgent ministerial statement, which was tabled last week by the Education Minister, on 31st of May, setting out a package of measures to raise achievement, to reduce educational disadvantage. Members, this is to note the statement unless any member wishes to make any comment at this stage.
Chair, if it's useful to clarify, we're continuing to bring in statements where they link to issues that were raised in our budget scrutiny. So this is the issue linked to importance of early years and so on. So we'll continue to do that as long as members are content.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is the Committee of Education. Information on fiscal and budgetary issues from the Department of Education. The Committee of Education has written to our committee to outline its scrutiny of budgetary matters within the Department of Education. 2 briefing papers from the Department of Education have also been provided. So members, this is to note this correspondence and agree to add it as an addendum to the committee's report on engagement on the draft executive budget 24-25, unless any member wants to raise a specific point in relation to what the Education Committee has sent us. Item 5.7 is from the Committee for the Economy on City and Growth Deals. At page 96 of the meeting pack, the Committee for the Economy has written to the Department of Finance again in respect of the early phasing of support for City and Growth Deals. A copy of the correspondence has been sent to this committee for information. So that's to note, unless any member wishes to make any comment on that. No? Okay. The next item is a copy of correspondence from the Minister of Finance, the Northern Ireland Minister of Finance, to the Senate's, it's the Welsh Senate, Senate's Finance Committee relating to its inquiry into fiscal intergovernmental relations. Members will recall that the Senate Finance Committee had requested detail from the Minister of a dispute raised with the Treasury in 2022. The Minister has indicated that this dispute related to funding for the Troubles Permanent Disablement Scheme. This dispute was paused in October 22. However, the Minister indicates in a response to the Senate Finance Committee that she intends to engage with Treasury to restart the dispute process. So this is just to note this response, members, and to seek an update from the Minister on her engagement with Treasury in relation to this matter. People will remember this was an ongoing thing that arose I think from the last time, I don't know, it was the last period of collapse when a UK government agreement was made around the very important Troubles Pension Permanent Disability Scheme, but there's been a long-running disagreement between the executive and the UK government over whose effective liability it is. So yes, it would be helpful to get an update from the department on that. I think it's also worth just noting, I think it is useful, given the broader conversations around fiscal framework and some of the conversations we have had in the committee about the difficulty getting engagement from particularly the Treasury, but the UK government writ large, certainly the outgoing UK government. I think it's positive and healthy that there are finance committees in other devolved jurisdictions are more than I think I remember happening in a few years ago, are engaging with one another and raising issues around devolved legislatures, not just the devolved administrations, but the devolved legislatures and their success or otherwise at getting information out of the UK government. And I would like to keep those channels of communication open. And obviously there were some. There's the various fora, which I attended one, and then the clerk attended another. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point. The next item is Assembly Research and Information Service briefing on the executive budget. That's at page 105 of the meeting pack. The Assembly Research Service published a series of 3 briefing papers related to the executive budget 24-25, context setting for 24-25 budget allocations and the Northern Ireland economic context. So members, that's to note these papers, unless any member wishes to make any comment or seek any further information. Steve Aiken.
Yeah, Chair, just to say, I think RAISE have done yet again another particularly good job. And along with the Fiscal Council's report, they've actually given us a lot of data and information that's very appropriate. I just wish the Department of Finance would take a similar sort of approach to its documentation.
Well, Your comments are noted now on the record, Mr. Aiken. Okay, the next item is Hansard transcripts from evidence sessions on the draft budget from the 22nd of May. Starting at page 199 of the meeting pack, there are Hansard transcripts of the meeting from the 22nd of May, one from the departmental session, one from NICVA, and the last briefing from the Department of Finance officials on the Executive Budget 24-25. So these transcripts are to note, unless anybody wishes to make a comment. So the next item is the NIC's guidance on the UK general election, which is guidance for conduct for civil servants and special advisors and devolved administration. So at page 237 of the meeting pack, there's a copy of the NIC's guidance for conduct for civil servants and special advisors. So members, this is really to note. At this stage, I am glad to say that I think I would say this, wouldn't I? I think this guidance was helpfully prompted, possibly by us having a discussion in the committee. I would suggest. I think it is published and it's there now. There is some interaction with some of the business that the executive is undertaking. I would suggest that it might be useful for us to write to the DALO to ask if there are specific what specific advice, if any, the Finance Minister has been given around the appropriateness or otherwise of announcements in the next month or 30 days or whatever it is till Thursday the 4th of July. So I think it would be helpful to get that information. I know that Deputy First Minister has been advised against launching a programme for government, which I think is, to be honest, understandable and probably quite reasonable in the circumstances. But it would be helpful, I think, to get a sense of what other advice is going to the Minister in that regard, if people are content. Steve Aiken.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I slightly disagree with you, well, a lot. I think the programme for government, I can't see any reason why the programme for government is being delayed on the excuse that was raised by the First Minister for anything to do with sort of a purdah period or what's going on with the sort of the time we're waiting for the Westminster election. I'd just like to understand what else has been used as an excuse to prevent work coming forward, particularly since we're being asked to look at a budget number 2 bill. And I think the Executive Office is bringing a legislative assembly or a legislative programme motion in front of the Assembly next week. Yet we can't seem to be able to do a programme for government, which we've been sitting on our backsides for well over 100 days for.
Well, first of all, I would gently remind the member that I'm in the opposition and he's not, but that would be. I didn't say that I thought it was a legitimate excuse around the programme for government. I thought it was understandable that officials might provide that advice, given that it is a general election and the programme for government is quite a substantive announcement. I have been on the record.
Just don't get too comfortable on that opposition seat there, Matthew.
Okay. Order. The member will speak through the chair. Does anybody else want to come in on that point? Okay. In that case, I think if we can seek that information from the officials, that would be useful. The next item is the Department of Finance's. The Department of Finance has written to us to advise that public sector pay and pay remit approvals for 24-25 guidance has now been published on the Department of Finance website. So members, this is really to note, is the table pack at page 3. This is to note unless any member wishes to raise anything. Okay. Item 5.17 is 5.17, I should say, is the October monitoring round. Members, at page 11 of the table pack, you will see that the committee wrote to the department after our meeting on the 15th of May. We wrote to the department to seek clarification on the position in relation to the October monitoring round. An explanation was provided and considered at our meeting on the 22nd of May. However, a formal response had already been requested through the DALO readout, so we raised it with Joanne McBurney in our session, and a formal response had already been requested via the DALO. Officials have provided the explanation again to close out that request, so that's really just formalising what Joanne told us in that meeting. So that's to note, unless any member wishes to make any comment or raise any other point at this stage. The next item is ministerial engagement with financial services bodies and banks. So, members, at page 12 of the tabled pack, there is a you'll see that following the plenary debate on rural ATMs, which was the secondary legislation that we approved to extend the rates relief on rural ATMs, the Minister indicated that she had been engaging with UK financial services bodies and banks at the meeting. And at the meeting on the 15th of May, the committee requested an update on any discussions and outcomes. Members also requested confirmation that it was the Department of Finance taking a lead on these matters. So do any members wish to make any comments about what the information that has been provided to us? Diane.
Thank you, Chair. It's really good to see the Minister having this engagement, and I know she had spoke to it on Chamber, but within it I wonder, could we follow up and ask her for a little bit more detail on some of this content? The conversation within it is around the organisations that are rolling out the banking hubs, and she expresses her disappointment that only one has been rolled out here in Northern Ireland so far. But I would like the committee to ask her, is her disappointment based on an assessment of the success of the one that's already there? Because I haven't seen an assessment of how successful it is, and being in my constituency, I know there's a lot of issues with the banking hubs, so I would be keen to see, has there been any review on the operation of it, how successful it's been, and just to highlight the fact that it hasn't included an ATM or improved cash access to the town. So I just would, before just the middle paragraph there, she's disappointed that only one has come out. And I just would like to ask, has there been any assessment of how successful they are, which outcomes they've reached, and have they improved
can ask
cash
for that.
access?
Would any other member wish to come in? I do actually have quite a substantive response to this. I think it is encouraging, number one, that the Minister is engaging on this, as is the Economy Minister, but it is concerning to me that quite a lot of activity and meetings seem to be happening without any clear sense of what executive policy is in relation to any of this. The Minister, for example, is having on the 19th of June a meeting with the Financial Conduct Authority. She does indicate there is clearly a complexity. Financial services is reserved to the UK government, but it is intimately connected to the success of our economy. Any economy obviously relies on a properly functioning financial services industry. But I get the impression that lots of meetings are happening, meetings that I don't think we as a committee or indeed the Assembly was briefed about or told that this was a specific area of activity for the department. That might not be a bad thing, but I think we do need clarity over what the exact policy intent of the executive is in this regard, understanding that it is a reserved matter, but the Minister is having meetings on it and clearly does seek to influence these financial services institutions. So whether it's in relation to banking hubs, whether it's in relation to branches, whether it's in relation to financial inclusion or a whole range of other things, or indeed inward investment by banks, whatever it is, I think we need to have a clearer sense of what the department, and indeed connected to the Department of Economy, because the Department of Economy clearly has an involvement in this, and the Economy Minister is also attending these meetings. For the record, and for the sake of putting it on the record, I got a written answer from the Economy Minister a number of days ago, in which the department said that they had a number of meetings, but no briefings, no formal briefings had been sent to the Minister on it. That indicates to me that there are meetings happening, but without a clear sense of policy direction. So I think it would be helpful to understand: are there a set of policy priorities that are being pursued here, or just meetings? If members are content, I think it would be helpful to get a much fuller readout of what the actual policy intent is here.
Yeah, Chair, I think that's a good idea, especially in the absence of a programme for government.
Yes.
We've seen the central executive high-level priorities, but for us in this committee and in the Department of Finance, I think it's a very fair thing to ask, what are the key priorities of this department?
I think if you're having meetings with the Financial Conduct Authority, then you are in a kind of sort of de facto way, assuming responsibility, and indeed the Minister's response or the Department's response implies that they have de facto responsibility for financial services here because of their relationship with the Treasury. So I think we need a clear sense of whether they have a set of policy outcomes or priorities they are working towards. Okay, if people are content with that, we will move on. The next agenda item is the Interparliamentary Finance Committee Forum. Page 15 of the tabled pack. The committee has been copied into response to the IFC Forum from HM Treasury staff. The forum had previously written to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury response. We got a brush off, they didn't even get a response. So that goes back to previous comments about engagement between devolved committees and the UK government. Hopefully in a month's time there may be a slight difference of tone, but I wouldn't hold my breath, whoever the government is, unfortunately. So members, that's to note, unless anybody wishes to raise any other points. Now, the next agenda item is an SR, and that is the whole of government account designation of bodies order Northern Ireland 2024. Members, at the meeting on the 22nd of May, we agreed that we were content with a proposed statutory rule to enable the Department of Finance to request information from departments and bodies designated and pass that information to HM Treasury for use in the preparation of the whole of government accounts. The rule has now been formally laid and is subject to negative resolution procedure before the Assembly. The Department has stated that there have been no changes to policy content since the SL1 was submitted to the Committee. Full details of the background to the rule can be found in correspondence from the Department, and cover notes starting at page 250 of the meeting pack. The end of the statutory period for this SR is the 2nd of July 2024. The Examiner Statutory Rules has not yet given an indication of when she will report in this rule. Members are asked to consider this rule subject to the Examiner's report. If any issues are highlighted by the Examiner, it will be brought to the Committee's immediate attention. Members, are you content with the statutory rules subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules? I will put the question that the Committee for Finance has considered SR 124/2024, the whole of government accounts designation of bodies order Northern Ireland 2024, and subject to the Examiner's report, has no objection to the rule. Agreed?
Agreed.
The next agenda item is the Government Resources and Accounts Northern Ireland Act 2001 Estimates and Accounts Designation of Bodies Order 2024. Members, at the meeting last week, the Committee agreed that it was content with the statutory rule to provide a list of designate bodies for inclusion in departmental estimates and accounts for the year ending 31st of March 2025. This agreement was subject to the Examiner's report, which was not available in time for last week's meeting. The Examiner has now reported on this rule, and her report can be found at page 22 of the tabled pack. So members, you can note that in the 16th report of the ESR includes consideration of SR 2024-114, and the ESR has not drawn any rules to the special attention of the Assembly. Okay. Now, the next agenda item is an oral briefing from the Department on reform, central government transformation. So members, there's a clerk's memo at page 264 of the meeting pack, and at page 267 of the meeting pack there is a briefing paper which was supplied by officials in advance of this session. We are going to have so the officials are going to brief us on the Integrate programme. Welcome Paul Duffy, who's Director of Digital Security and Finance Shared Services at the Department, and Christy Murray, who is the Integrate Programme Director. Welcome to you both. Thank you for coming to brief us, and Paul or indeed Christy can make an opening statement. Thank you.
Chair and committee members, so for the opportunity to give an update on the Integrate programme, which was previously known as the Central Government Transformation Programme, but we had a rebranding a number of years ago. Chair, as you've indicated, you will have received a short briefing paper, hopefully in advance of today, so my opening statement really is just going to summarise that position. So I am currently the Senior Responsible Owner for the programme, and Kirsty Murray here is the Programme Director for the programme. The programme was established to enable the transformation of finance, HR and our payroll services across the civil service by implementing a new target operating model. for these services, and also replacing the legacy standalone systems with a new integrated cloud-based solution. The way services are currently delivered across the civil service, it might be helpful just to provide a little bit of background of how finance and HR are delivered. So for finance, we currently have a largely decentralised model. So we have a finance shared service within the Department of Finance, and that provides a standardised end-to-end financial transaction processing for the 9 government departments, the Northern Ireland Office, the Public Prosecution Service, and a number of arm's length bodies. The shared service function is responsible for the Count and I system, and some of you may be aware of that system given that it had to be taken offline in September for a major upgrade. Within each department, there's then a retained finance function, which, amongst other things, manages that department's budget, accounts for the department's expenditure and income, and reports accordingly. And to varying degrees, there are different approaches and processes adopted by individual departments of how they discharge their finance responsibilities. In relation to HR, we have a centralised model as opposed to finance's decentralised one, with the People and Organisational Development Directorate in the Department of Finance leading all civil service people policies, and also the civil service 5-year people strategy. And we have NICS HR, again within the Department of Finance, who deliver a centralised HR operational shared service function on behalf of the civil service. Some of these operational services are provided by a third-party supplier, including the HR Connect, which is the system used by civil servants. A significant driver for the Integrate programme is the need to replace the current Account NI and HR Connect systems, both of which have been in operation for quite some time. As well as the challenges of ageing technology, there are a number of pain points experienced in the current delivery of finance and HR. These have been highlighted through engagement with colleagues across departments and in findings of recent reviews, such as those undertaken by the Northern Ireland Audit Office and the PAC. The pain points accentuate the need for a wider transformation of how services are designed and delivered, and that is why the integrated scope goes beyond a simple technology change and is focused on the delivery of a new target operating model spanning all aspects of how you would manage a model like that, such as data, people, organisation, performance, process design and policy, as well as technology. This change will enable the benefits of modern technology to be unlocked and the delivery of flexible, customer-focused services. The Integrate programme is working closely with colleagues in people and organisational development, NICS HR and finance colleagues to design and implement the new target operating model, which will include a full process redesign and introduction of best practice processes in finance and HR, greater centralised delivery of transactional processing within a shared service, insourcing recruitment and case management service, which are currently outsourced to a third-party supplier, and the delivery of an integrated cloud-based solution to replace the current standalone legacy systems, which are becoming increasingly outdated and expensive to sustain and support. The programme will seek to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of finance and HR services across the civil service, improve business intelligence through better use of data and insights, enhance the experience of end users, and provide streamlined, accessible services which are agile and responsible now to new ways of working. So following a number of successful recruitment exercises, the programme has established an internal team and procured the support of a business transformation partner who brings relevant experience and expertise to support the programme through its design and implementation phases. The programme has also recently procured the technology solution.
All right, Paul, who's the business transformation partner?
It's Ernst & Young.
Ernst & Young. And they're obviously, they're not the only, when you say the business transformation, is their job is what exactly, kind of project management or?
It's for client-side support, so they provide a range of services. So some of it is supporting our project management, some of it is around how we deliver change, and some of it's helping us design what the new processes would look like.
Okay.
So we've also procured the technology solution, which will replace the two current standalone systems, Account NI and HR Connect. And we've recently launched a procurement to acquire a delivery partner who will help configure the new solution to meet our requirements, implement that solution, and then provide the ongoing support for the service until the end of the contract. So the current programme timeline envisages that there will be a phased approach to go live, with finance going live by department, followed by HR on a functional basis. The plan sees a final go-live date of November 2027, with the precise details and timings of the implementation and go-live phases to be determined in collaboration with the integrated delivery partner when appointed. The overall cost of implementing the integrated programme is currently estimated as £92.8 million. As you will be aware,
That's over the lifetime of the project. That's
over the
and how many years is that? What's the?
so that will be up until it covers up to 2027, and then there will be costs for ongoing support of delivery.
So that's the kind of setup cost really is 92. Yeah.
Yep.
And when does that? And that's everything that's paid. That's.
Yeah.
And when does that start? So that's up to 27, 28. And when does it? I'm asking, I guess, when the project started.
The project started in 2019, but there was a period then when we went into COVID. The program was stood down for a period of time, but it probably fully got up and running in 2021, and that will take us then until the end of the 27-28 year.
Okay, so there's the setup cost. Okay, go on ahead. Sorry,
and as you'll be aware, we've been allocated £12.9 million in this financial year to take the programme forward, as well as a range of qualitative benefits, some of which I've mentioned. The programme has estimated potential recurring savings of over £14 million per year from 29-30 onwards.
How long do you estimate you'll get out of it?
So the programme, it'll be a 3 years plus 7, so 10-year lifetime for the contract. So it'll be 7 years of go live. So we're estimating at the moment £14 million of savings.
Annually?
Annually.
There's an annualised savings, so if it's running for a decade from then and it's annualised, you're roughly saying it's saving you about very roughly 40 or 50 million quid, because it's, if you're talking about 100 million or 92 million pound upfront investment.
So we're probably close to £100 million savings over the term, from start to finish. So that it does pay for itself over that period, but it also, as well as paying for itself, it brings a huge amount of sort of qualitative benefits in terms of how we deliver services, improving how we go about recruiting, retaining staff. It has lots of opportunities to give us greater data and greater insight. Just almost complete, Chair, with the opening statement, just to say that it is a very complex programme. It cuts across lots of functional areas. It will impact on all civil servants, and it will require the support and contribution from colleagues in finance and HR and across the departments to design and implement the new solution. It will also require commitment, and this is a key aspect of this programme, from all our stakeholders to the principle of adopt, not adapt, which will lead to a significant level of standardisation to processes and ways of working across departments, and that will improve the efficiency and get the maximum benefit from the solution. What we want to avoid is heavily customising a new solution, because the consequences of that have been demonstrated through other systems which we have observed going live and had huge difficulties. We've engaged widely with colleagues in other jurisdictions on similar transformation journeys, drawing on best practice and lessons learned. And we have a number of critical friends on our programme board who have direct experience of delivering similar solutions. Finally, Chair, just during this next phase, which is probably this financial year 24-25, we'll be commencing the co-design workshops with colleagues in finance, HR and departments, as well as concluding the procurement for the integrated delivery partner. We will then scope our payroll requirements, and we will be working with colleagues in Nix HR and finance shared service to ensure a smooth transition and exit from the current contracts and migration to the new systems.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, there's a lot of the really detailed explanation there of the programme. I suppose for the lay person, lots of solutions, models, programmes, but for the average civil servant or prospective civil servant, how is this going to make their working life better or easier?
So, from a system perspective, our current system has been in place since both finance and HR since 2006. They're not particularly intuitive. They can be difficult to navigate. And
you mean, when you say not particularly intuitive, do you mean if I'm a civil servant and I have to log, I want to request leave? In some cases, it'll be simply, I guess, emailing your line manager. But if you want to request leave or, I don't know, access pension information, it's just literally an old clunky website which takes time to operate. Is that what you mean?
Largely, yeah. The system, as I say, the system is designed. If you imagine any sort of piece of software, how it moves through, through its life cycle, we have a system, and this would have been the approach in the past where you design, build, and implement a large HR, finance, whatever system, and that's it for about 10 years. Then you come back and you go through a whole big system redesign. This solution that we're hoping to implement will be a software solution rather than a system, and therefore you will get quarterly updates to that system, a bit like an app on your phone. Every time a new functionality comes out, it refreshes your app, you have access to that. That's what will happen going forward with the new
You say
solution.
it's a software solution rather than a system.
Yeah.
What, like a system meaning, if it was a system, it would require lots of training of staff for how there's a new chart or a new flow chart for how you have to do certain processes. Is that what you mean? Versus just software, which is more intuitive?
Yeah, so what tends to
Tell me if I'm
happen
completely
is you tend to
misunderstanding.
build a system and have software on it in terms of how you provide a service. This will be simply a software as a service where you actually just pay a subscription for a piece of software to a vendor,
Okay.
and you will access that software. And there are a number of key players within sort of the ERP phase in terms of finance and HR systems. But I suppose that's what I mean about it being a bit of software rather than a big clunky system that you would have designed and built in the past and then had to refresh every 10, 15 years.
Okay.
But civil servants should find a new solution much more intuitive, easy to navigate. It should free up their time to do the job that they're to do rather than being caught up in trying to find the easiest way to work out what the amount of leave or whatever they have left.
Is the main cost then procuring the software?
The main cost is there's an element of cost for procuring the software. There's an element of cost then to redesigning all our policies and processes, and then there's the configuration of the system to match that, and then the implementation costs. So I think is it about 30 million? Is the 28 million? Is it our software costs?
Software costs, 28 million. That's over the term.
Okay. And who are the main procurement partners, or who's getting all the £92 million, or who are you buying the software off, and we've mentioned Ernst & Young who are going to be partners in relation to part of the project.
Yeah.
Who else?
So you have Ernst & Young, that would be sort of what we term as the client-side support. So they'd be supporting us, helping us with the design of new processes.
Mm-hmm.
There will be the software provider, in this case it's going to be Oracle,
Yeah.
who is our current provider for Accounting and HR Connect. And then we are in the process of procuring a delivery partner who could be one of the, I don't want to start naming any particular companies because the procurement is live at the moment, but it'd be the type of vendors you would expect in system implementations.
Large IT. There's going to be large IT companies, you would imagine.
And some of the consultancy firms will be in there as well because they provide that service in partnership with other IT companies.
Companies probably like Capita, that type of company. I'm not asking you. Okay. I'm going to open up the colleagues. The Deputy Chair.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks very much for coming to brief us on this. And I know previously, whenever we'd had our budget briefing, this is one of the things identified as a potential, project to pause as a saving. And we had mentioned at the committee at the time that it just didn't feel right to be highlighted as potential saving because you'd spent so much on it so far, and it's just so integral to everything in the civil service. But again, it's the things that make people's life simpler and things operate smoothly that just happen in the background. And if you're ring fencing a big amount of money, it doesn't necessarily look frontline delivery, and I understand that. When you talk about the 92.8 million, I'm just keen to understand how much is spent so far.
Yes, so far we have sunk costs of around 13.5 million.
And you're saying we've committed then in the 24-25 year to 12.9.
Yeah, there was some money already in the baseline, so it's about 15.5 million this year.
Quite a lot in the total amount there. I was just wondering in terms of So again, back to that same point, you've spent a lot so far, you've got a decent commitment this year. Have you any detail on what you're going to get or likely to get then in 25, 26, 26, 27? Because presumably when you go so far in, there's not really any going back.
Yeah, we have had no indication or discussions on budget post the current financial year. What I would say, the case for change is very strong and why we need to do this. I would also highlight, our current systems are 2006. We did have to take the Account and I system offline for 3 weeks last year to do a major upgrade. My concern would be this aging technology isn't sustainable. The Account and I system alone makes £4 billion payments. It's really important that we have a sustainable system for that. Some of the benefits, and just to mention, a lot of the work, particularly in finance, we do around budgeting and forecasting, is all still done on spreadsheets. It's all offline. There's a real opportunity to have that data on the system, and also then to have much more analysis and insight and better decision making based on real live data rather than actually on spreadsheets.
Oh, absolutely, and I remember working at the time when Account and I rolled out as well, and it's even things as simple as improving your prompt payment systems and the impact that has on small and medium-sized businesses across Northern Ireland. So the importance of this can't be underestimated. It's good to clarify it, because I would be keen going forward in this committee that we don't see integrate on a potential savings list again if it's come this far and this much is spent and it's so much needed, so it's good to get that information. I just wanted to ask as well, I just seen it in the notes there about there was an amber status at the independent gateway review stage.
Yes.
Could you give us some detail of the issues around that? Some of them were significant.
Yeah, so there have been 2 gateway reviews conducted on the programme. There was one done in May 2020 which had a red rating and highlighted a number of issues, largely around lack of financial certainty and insufficient resources in the programme. We then have went through a period, obviously during COVID, there was a period where the programme didn't really progress particularly far. We've reset the programme and we asked for an independent gateway review just to come in and look at the programme. The main issues, again, were probably around resourcing. However, we have had a number of very successful recruitment competitions lately and recruited a number of people into the programme with specialist HR, finance and with some technology skills. There was one of the issues was around governance, ensuring we had the appropriate governance. This programme is heavily dependent on colleagues in people and organisational development and HR doing work on policy development and operational aspects of how HR is delivered. We will ensure that those new policies and things are designed in the new system. So the Gateway was saying we need to make sure there's good alignment between HR and this programme. So that was the other issue. Can you think of any of the other main ones?
No, those were the main ones. We do have an action plan in place to address them, and I suppose it's important to highlight that the definition of an amber assessment is that the successful delivery to time, quality and cost does seem feasible for the programme, and the issues identified do need to be addressed in a prompt way, but that those are no reason to hold back on proceeding to the next stage, which we have done.
That's great, and it's good to get that clarity that there's more the things out of your control, the constraints of the finances and the other policies. It's nothing to do with how much the project's needed or the quality of the project. Yeah. So no, that's great.
No, there was certainly a wide acceptance from the Gateway Review of the case for change and the need for the programme.
Oh, certainly. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Steve Aiken.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much indeed for the evidence in front of the committee. Look, I'm just going to go back to what the Deputy Chair said, and it's an amber assessment that's been made at this point. And I don't quite know where we are in project definition, but some of the things you've been talking about seems to be we haven't quite yet sort of worked out all the things that Integrate is going to do, who's going to be doing for, and why it's going to be doing. And all those are particularly expensive issues. My question is fairly direct. Who holds the risk in this project? Is it the department and the Northern Ireland Civil Service, or is it with the contractors who have already been brought on the process? And what contingency have we put into what is, for the best part of £100 million programme? What's the contingency for cost overruns? Because I think anybody who's looked quite closely at IT projects in government have always been subject to considerable overruns, and seeing an amber warning at this stage raises more than a few concerns to me.
So Chair, I am a gateway reviewer and have reviewed quite a number of projects across not just the public sector in Ireland but also in the UK. And as an SRO for this programme, I was very comfortable with an amber status, given where the programme is at this moment in time. Certainly, if it had been a red status, I would have been very concerned. And actually, as SRO, I suppose it's me that actually commissioned the gateway to happen just to get that assurance. So, although it's an amber rating, the alternative is green, which tends to say that there are no issues at all, and then very rarely do you get in a programme of this size and this complexity that there are no issues that tend to have to be addressed. In terms of risk, for me, the risk is there are a huge number of individuals who would be impacted by the failure of this programme, and as I mentioned earlier, my main concern would be the business continuity of the current systems that we have, and if they failed, and the implications of that. I think in terms of accountability, the accountability for the delivery of this programme rests with the accounting officer in the Department of Finance, with myself as SRO for the programme. I think the programme's in a good, healthy state presently, and we have a very solid plan in place to deliver the remaining aspects of it. We also have really good, I feel, very robust arrangements in place to hold our current suppliers and contractors to account for performance. We have qualified contract management staff within the programme, and we have contract management arrangements in place to monitor their performance on a monthly basis.
Yeah, thank you. And just a quick follow-up, Chair, with your indulgence.
Yes.
Obviously, in front of this committee previously, we've had discussions with other suppliers, I think particularly BT, and the problems they had with BT in doing that as well. And it was one of the reasons why I'm filled with a degree of nervousness about an amber definition at this stage. And I'm glad that we have somebody who's willing to take responsibility, and that's something I think is something to be welcomed. But just what are the next major project milestones that need to be achieved if we are to move the project on?
Yeah, so I think, Chair, the main issue at the moment for us is so we have started procurement for a delivery partner. So that'll be an Oracle specialist who will come in and help us configure the system to meet our new policies and processes. What's really important is that where possible, and it has to be an exceptional circumstance, we don't do this, that we use the out-of-the-box solution that comes from Oracle. That solution is based on best practice for HR and finance practices. So we should not be looking to tailor that or think that we are special in any way, because that's when you start getting into difficulties going forward, when you tailor these solutions. We have seen that with our current system. So if you want to make a change to the current system, because you've heavily customised it, you have to go to your supplier, and it is costly then to change it. So we want to keep this, I suppose, as streamlined and as intuitive to implement as possible. So recruiting that delivery partner is really, really important. That will hopefully happen by the end of this financial year. In preparation for that delivery partner arriving, we are doing a lot of work this year, co-designing processes, looking at cleansing our data. So whenever the delivery partner arrives, that they will start working day one, and we're not found wanting in terms of providing with the information they need to move forward. So the key things are complete the procurement for the delivery partner, commence the co-design workshops. We also need to understand better what our new payroll system looks like. The reason we haven't progressed that just yet is because we have only procured the Oracle solution within the last few weeks. We want to understand the level of automation we can get out of that to minimise what the payroll solution may need to look like and keep those costs down. So I suppose those are the three key milestones this year.
Okay, happy enough. Paul Frew.
Yes, thank you. This programme straddles all departments, health, education, communities.
All central government departments, but not the health and education sectors.
Oh, right, so not the trusts?
No. So
one of
Civil service rather than.
So one of my questions was, how will this be compatible with the Encompass system, which is rolling out in the trusts at this present time, but there will be no interface or interaction?
No. So the Education Authority have a separate project which they have just implemented in terms of their finance and HR solution, which is similar to what we have now, an on-premise Oracle solution. They haven't moved quite yet to a cloud solution. And within health, they have what's called the Equip program, which is looking to do very similar to the program that we're undertaking for the health sector. So that will include the trusts. So we will have no interface with the health trust. What we are very keen on, however, is seeing how best we can get access to the data in terms of particularly spend and expenditure from the health systems and education systems, so that whenever we're doing a budgeting process, you have full sight across all sectors.
There is a sense of nervousness when you speak to trust employees about the rollout of a new scheme. I suspect there is this level of nervousness too with regards to integrate. What's the levels? Are you concerned about the levels of nervousness with regards to the new system? We all have to move forward, we all have to advance, but how do you manage that nervousness with a new system?
I think that is the biggest challenge for us, and I will always try to frame this isn't a technology solution. This isn't about the system that we will put in place or the software we will put in place. This is about business change. So this is about changing how we currently do things, and that's probably where the greatest resistance comes, because it's in people's nature not necessarily want to change something they've been doing the same way for the last 10-15 years. And that's where this whole co-design approach comes in, is getting out and talking to users of the system. And I don't necessarily at the moment mean civil servants who are booking a day's leave, but people in the HR function, the finance function, who are using it every single day for their job, getting out and demonstrating to them, this is what the new solution will do. This is based on best practice. We now need to design how you currently do things to match that best practice, and that's the journey which will be most challenging. We have got very good senior sponsorship across the civil service in terms of that principle I said about adopt, not adapt. That's great, the sign up principle. It's whenever you start actually implementing that will be tested, and I think we will start to see that this year.
You talk about the establishment of an internal programme team. That in itself might bring confidence, or at least expertise with regards to what you're rolling out. Where are you with regards to that recruitment?
So we have, I'm not going to remember exactly how many people, we must have about 35-40 in the team at the moment, about 40 people in the team at the moment. Though they are a mix of people with an HR background, a finance background, data background, technology background, the whole sort of raft of experiences that we need to deliver this programme. The good thing that I would say, and the very promising and pleasing thing, is that, you know, programmes like this are not easy for people to work within. There's a lot of responsibility. They also tend to move at a very fast pace and require an awful lot of effort and work from individuals. I'm delighted to say we've had people running towards this programme to get involved in it. So, you know, we went out for a recruitment campaign a number of months ago for a change director, which is a reasonably senior post within the programme. We had 55 applicants from civil service, wider public sector, private sector. So people see the opportunities in this programme. So I'm delighted at the moment we have a very good team and seem to be attracting good talent into it.
Question then around cost. So you go live, the planning to go live November 27. 92 million of cost.
Yeah.
To me that's payback of about 6.5 years once it rolls out in 2027. Why are we only saving 14 million per annum from 2029-30?
So that's the period, I suppose, whenever we're up to full implementation and full benefits being realised. So I would expect those savings to start materialising a lot earlier. So they will start materialising as we do the phased rollout of the programme, and then they will incrementally increase until that year, which becomes, I suppose, the full operational year when all benefits should be delivered.
So go live will be staged in many ways?
Yes. So for finance, because we're going live with 9 as well as other arms like bodies, but you have 9 government departments. That's a huge amount to go all at once. So we will, and this will be subject to change depending on how we talk to our delivery partner, but it will be very much perhaps like 3 departments at a time for the first 3 phases, or it could be 4 and 5. There will be a phased approach to that go live. So we will want to perhaps take forward some of the smaller departments, just to test how that lands. And then for HR, it'll go live not by department but by function. So you may group 3 or 4 functions and do that over a 2-phased approach. And then by November 2027, everyone should have moved on to the new solution.
And is there in the whole design scheme of the programme an assessment period, a probation period for the new scheme once it rolls out, to make sure that you've caught all the glitches and everything else that goes with it?
Yeah, there will be a period after every time we have a go live phase. There will be an aftercare period,
Right, okay.
where there will be a period where we will look to see has all the functionality that we expect to go live gone live, or where are the issues. And obviously we will learn through the phases, and they should become less and less as we progress. I think to go for a big bang approach of all departments and all functions for HR and finance all going at once would be a huge risk. And actually we've done a lot of work trying to learn from others and what others have done, and this approach seems to be the most sensible way of doing it in terms of minimising risk. I'm not saying that everything will go smoothly, but this approach is the one that would minimise that as much as possible.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, no further colleagues have indicated they wish to come in. Just one final question from me is really around civil service recruitment. I'm glad to hear that the project team is really attractive to people from inside the civil service and outside. There is a recruitment challenge that the civil service has more broadly, particularly based around, getting people in to replace the cliff edge at particularly management levels in the next few years and decade. Thinking about those recruitment challenges, some of those are kind of strategic questions for people like Jill Min, etc. But how do you think Integrate will help with that structural, strategic challenge that the civil service has in terms of recruiting talent at all levels, at kind of graduate level, mid-career levels, school leaver level, the technical grades? Just interested to hear how you think it can help.
Well, I think the Integrate solution will give a variety of ways of recruiting rather than going out. So currently we go out through HR Connect, they're advertised in newspapers, it's on the next recruitment website. I think the Integrate solution will give you opportunities to harness other ways of recruiting. So if I give you an example for the Integrate programme, we have spent quite a bit of time trying to create a story around what it is we're trying to deliver. So people aren't necessarily just applying for a job role, but they're applying for a purpose. So they understand, I suppose, in the round what they're coming in to do, and they're part of a bigger team, and using social media, LinkedIn, other methods of trying to attract talent. And I think that's worked quite well. And I would say, so I also have responsibility for the IT infrastructure for the civil service, and recruiting IT professionals is really, really challenging. Again, some of it we need to think more about how we describe what we do. There are huge opportunities in the civil service, really interesting jobs, and the narrative sometimes around what those opportunities and what you can contribute and how you can grow a career in the civil service maybe isn't always quite articulated in the way we sometimes recruit. And I think there is something about how we tell the story of what the opportunities are, and the Integrated solution should provide a technology solution to make it easier to apply for jobs too.
Yeah, recruitment can be a very transactional process, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of manual processing involved there, especially on large-scale competitions. So the Integrate programme is going through a process of end-to-end process redesign.
Yeah.
We will be looking at every stage of what we do
Okay.
and trying to streamline that. So that creates the opportunity for us to be smarter with how we do all our processes, including the recruitment process. And we're also insourcing that. The recruitment function at the minute, there's a lot of that is outsourced. So when that
As
comes
part of
on-
Integrate, that's going to be insourced, it's going to be done in-house.
Yes, which is going to create a greater flexibility for the NICS to tailor and adapt respond to and be proactive when looking at the recruitment landscape and that sort of pipeline of of when we see the large volume competitions coming through.
So, Chair, if you imagine if you wanted to recruit into the civil service, we are contractually obliged to go through HR Connect. If we have that fully insourced, then we can use all our variety of methods to go out and recruit.
Yeah. The other thing is, the first contact staff have with the civil service is that application form, and that's their first experience, and we have the opportunity to make that a very modern, attractive process. It's part of our sales pitch to the marketplace, and it's our first, I suppose, setting our opportunity to set out our stall as an employer. So we see that as a really big area of opportunity for the NICS.
And if it's very processy and clunky, it reinforces the idea that this is some bureaucratic civil service. It's not interesting.
And
As exciting as a career as someone, a 25-year-old who has perhaps a slightly better paid IT developer job somewhere, but might be attracted into public service if it's properly pitched to them.
yeah, so one of the challenges we have in the IT profession is if we go out and we try to recruit someone, by the time we get an application form out, they apply for the application, it's assessed, we arrange interviews, we have an interview. By that stage, quite often, if you're in the private sector, you've moved on to another opportunity. So we need to find ways that actually we can streamline that whole process and make it more interactive.
Okay. I should just say, for the record, given I have an APG that cares about media system, but I do think newspaper advertisement has a very profound benefit, and not that I know HR Connect is a process, but some of the advertisements in our major newspapers help support those newspapers because they perform a public service. But that's just me putting that on the record because I have a particular interest in that area too. So those vacancies, there's a benefit to that too. Okay. If no other members want to come in on that point, thanks Paul, thanks Kirsty, we really appreciate your time coming to brief us.
Thank you.
We obviously will keep in touch, and please do keep our committee abreast of any developments, negative and positive, in relation to Integrate. I'm sure there won't be any negative developments, obviously.
Yeah.
And we appreciate the briefing, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, they're pretty crunky.
Dublin was a fight.
Okay, members, the next agenda item is correspondence, and that begins at page 280 of the meeting pack. I will draw attention to them, and people can comment obviously as we go. 8.1 is correspondence from an individual regarding the Department of Finance and Land and Property Services. At page 282 of the meeting pack, you will find correspondence from the Public Accounts Committee relating to an individual's complaints in relation to the Department of Finance and Land and Property Services handling of revaluations. PAC have forwarded this correspondence to our committee given the relevance of the subject matter. This is to note at this point unless anybody wishes to raise anything or ask any further information. Okay, the next item is a memorandum of reply to the Public Accounts Committee report Broadband Investment in Northern Ireland. Members will find a copy of the Department of Finance's memorandum of reply to a PAC report on broadband investment in Northern Ireland. Several recommendations from the PAC report are relevant to the remit of the Department of Finance, in particular procurement centres of excellence. We could have actually raised that with our previous witnesses. Land and property services. Members may wish to obtain an update on the relevant recommendations in 6 months' time, which I think is a good idea, to be kept abreast of those recommendations. So this is to note, otherwise unless anybody wants to raise anything. The next item, 8.3, is the Examiner Statutory Rules 15th report. Members, page 318 of the meeting pack is a copy of the ESR's 15th report. There are no rules referenced in this report relevant to the committee's remit, so the report is simply to note at this stage unless any member wishes to make a comment or request any further information. 8.4 is the ISNI Delivery Tracking System Investing Activity Report, May 2024. Page 326 of the meeting pack, members will find a summary report of projects owned by the Department of Finance. As before, the only project mentioned is the refurbishment of Orchard House. So that's just a note. Agenda item 9 is the draft forward work programme, which the clerk's going to brief us on. I think the major one we still have to be confirmed, unless it's been confirmed since I last spoke to you, is our head of the civil service briefing on 26th of June.
So, Chair, that's been we've been having dialogue with the private office of the head of the civil service, and that's the provisional date that they have agreed. Members might recall that we wrote to the First and Deputy First Minister to request, if you're requesting officials from another department, you write to the Minister. So we've done that. The Hawks office had got in touch directly, so we are assuming that we will at some point have a follow-up permission letter from the office of the First Deputy First Minister. That should just be a kind of formal thing that happens. So we have provisionally got that briefing scheduled for the 26th. I've also been in discussion with our own DALO around where that might cross into DOF territory. And I've been indicating to the DALO that we've had briefings on what reform and transformation of the civil service means from a DOF perspective, but we effectively wanted to be able to hear from the committee wanted to be able to hear from the head of the civil service around what that means at her level in terms of strategy, vision, how that plays out over a longer term. So we will continue to have those discussions around clarifying exactly what's expected of those briefings. We've indicated as well that that would also get into the area of systems of note-taking and so on, which the committee has brought up a number of times, and seeking an update from Dr. Brady about how that's working on that wider scale. She'll have a perspective across the service in a slightly different way from what DOF will have with their personnel, if you like, or HR function. So she'll bring a different perspective to that. Members may also have, this is probably a useful opportunity, Chair, to bring up any other issues that members might want to bring up with Hawks at this point, so that we can ensure that she's aware and prepared for that.
Yeah, I think that is useful. So if members do wish, obviously, it can happen by correspondence if you wish to flag anything either on the
Chair, I've
Yes.
got a bit of confused or a line coming through there. Are we going to also raise the issue about recruitment of permanent secretaries and how that seems to have been done as well? We're going to raise that issue. Bearing in mind that was something that came.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I don't think. I don't think we have to exhaustively list everything that that we're going to ask the head of the civil service in terms of. I think if we give a broad sense of the areas we would like to cover, I think that's more than reasonable. I think the head of the civil service is more than capable and should be expected to answer questions without sight of every single verbatim question she's going to be asked. I think the key thing is that we have confirmation as soon as possible that this meeting is happening on the 26th of June. So can I suggest, if members are content, that we nudge in the nicest possible way the private office of the First and Deputy First Minister and be absolutely clear that we will view with extreme displeasure if any further delay confirming that the head of the civil service can brief the Department of the Finance Committee of the Northern Ireland Assembly. I think it may simply be something innocent. It may just be sitting in the system and it hasn't been signed and it hasn't been it hasn't been at the top of a to-do list. That's fine. It's quite close to the top of our to-do list, so I think we're well within our rights to chase in a polite way.
Hawks office did indicate they expected that confirmation would be this week.
Okay.
So
If
we
it's
will
not, then
we will wait and then we will nudge, and I suspect what you've said also acts as a fairly helpful nudge as well.
Okay.
But we follow up on that. Just a couple of other things, Chair. Outturn written briefing has been confirmed for the 26th. Members had agreed to take a written briefing because the forward work programme has become so heavy, and we have the SRs around stillbirths and deaths are going to be laid on the 14th of June. Fire safety SL1's been confirmed for the meeting of the 26th of June. Really, those need to have come to conclusion before the summer recess happens. So just to put those on members' radar. We've also gone slightly further ahead into the autumn with a request for a fiscal council briefing on the 2nd of October. So we're seeking members' agreement to proceed with that. That's a date that's been mutually identified as possible for them. The rationale for that is the Fiscal Council will discuss with members what a normal budget cycle looks like. Obviously, that's been extensively referenced in Fiscal Council's publications. The side rationale of that, or the other rationale of that, is then being able to pass that information on and support other statutory committees in pursuing their briefings and so on that they should be receiving during a normal budget cycle, including time scales and those kinds of issues, if that support can be provided. So if members are content, we'll proceed to list that for the 2nd of October. Thank you.
Great.
The other thing, just quickly to highlight, Chair, is members are aware that there are 2 interparliamentary fora. There's the one for the finance committees, and then there's the other one that used to be brackets on Brexit, that is now post-Brexit, although they just call it the Interparliamentary Forum. That's going to be hosted here in November, and what I'm seeking from the committee is an agreement for you primarily, Chair, to attend, but any other support that's required in that hosting. So if members are content, we anticipate that'll be mid-November. And thank you, members, you're content to support that. So we'll have more details as we go on. The likelihood is it's more than expected just going to be Executive Office Committee, this committee, very potentially, but we're not sure, Economy Committee, but we'll keep everybody up to date on that. Thanks, Chair. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover for now.
If members are content, that we'll have the draft order work programme published on the website.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? I just have one item of business, which is around the Public Sector Transformation Board.
Yes.
I don't feel we've had enough briefing yet on the Public Sector Transformation Board. So I would like to suggest that if there's any way we can do it before we break up, to have someone come and brief us on what has been agreed and what the Public Sector Transformation Board, because if you listen to what the Minister said in the Chamber, clearly quite a lot has been agreed and developed, but I haven't seen very much in terms of either at a committee level or the Chamber. So I would appreciate both a written update for next week on the Public Sector Transformation Board, if people are content, but also I think an oral briefing from the relevant. So we know that people have been appointed to assist on the Public Sector Transformation Board. One of them is the Perm Sec of the NIO. Another one is the former head of the Nevin, either Nevin or Esri, I forget which. Esri. And I think we would benefit from a proper briefing on how the Public Sector Transformation Board is going to work and what it's going to actually do. And if an official is able to if an official from the department is able to do that with us before I think that would be a perfectly reasonable thing for us to ask, given that there clearly work is in hand. I'll go to the Deputy Chair first, and then Steve Aiken.
Thanks, Chair. I would agree with you. And again, just to make the point, it's in the same spirit as the comment you made earlier about gaining the Minister's clarity on what policy and what the priorities are. So this is quite a key thing. Once again, there's been a lot of work done on that.
Yeah, exactly.
I
think, to be honest, I think if there is a lead official, I think we should ask. I'm going to jump back quickly to the financial services discussion we had. I think we should ask if there's a lead official on financial services who is in charge of setting these meetings up and providing briefings, and if they're able to come and brief us, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But in any case, I do think the PSTB is something we need to get briefing on. Steve Aiken.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I would quite like to see if there's any sort of terms of reference for the committee, because it seems to be, just listening to the Minister's comments from the floor, it seems to have gone quite a long way, particularly as they're already appointing people to the committee. So I would be interested to know what the most updated terms of reference are. I'd actually quite like to see them and see what the remit of the committee is, and if there's any sort of further correspondence of setting it up and how they got to the point of appointing people to this committee and how that went through the public appointments process. I'm a bit blindsided by all this, and it seems to be moving at pace. Not that I'm not against it moving at pace, but I think we should at least be informed of the process and what's happening.
Because it won't be a public appointment for a start. It won't fall under the public appointments process. Not that I'm answering on the Minister's behalf. They have, obviously, they can create structures and appoint people to them without. But the rest of your, obviously, we can ask for the most fulsome briefing, and I also think if we can ask in our correspondence whether a relevant official is able to come and brief us before recess. I think that specifically on the PSTB, what has been agreed with the UK government, because, for example, the Permanent Secretary of the NIO is going to sit on this board. That's a relatively novel thing. in the devolved era, because we're creating a situation, or a situation has been created, in which the lead official in terms of the UK government's relationship with Northern Ireland has an oversight role in relation to certain types of transformation activity. I just think it's worth us getting written briefing and requesting an oral briefing before the end of term. Okay.
Chair, we have a written request in from last week, and I think it might be worth highlighting to members that there were criteria around membership as part of all the.
Did we ask for a briefing with PSTB already?
We've asked for written briefing.
Okay.
So we'll now follow that up with a request for an oral briefing. There were criteria for membership of the board at that time, including UK government executive appointees, plus international kind of other specialists and so on. So it might be a case of pinning down whether there's additional criteria have been used to apply.
The old us'ns, them'ns, none of us'ns formula has been. Anyway.
But ideally, oral briefing would be the most useful so that members can interact.
Okay. I wasn't saying that in my capacity as chair, obviously. Okay. In that regard, if everyone's happy, if there are no other business, then we'll move on to date, time and place of next meeting, which is Wednesday 12th of June, 2 o'clock in this room 21. And if people are content, I'll put the question: the committee do now adjourn. The committee is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Committee Room 21. Sound.